Hey folks, Fernando doing another video for More Survivalists, and in this case analyzing another police video. This is a body cam from the Tickle Sundberg incidents where police responded. The Minneapolis police responded to a call. There was an armed man that was acting and being dangerous towards people in the building, and police respond to this. And you see several things here in this video, okay? You see police responding, they go to the door, knock on the door, they're not getting any reply, try again. Now, I don't know if this is, exactly correct, but it seems to be that the cop is trying not to stand directly in front of the door. Based on the angle and given how the camera maybe deforms the door a little bit, but I would say that he's correctly standing out of the path of anything coming down that hall through that door. Guys, doors, even steel ones, don't assume they're bulletproof. Most likely they're not. I mean, I usually have a bulletproof door. It's not always the case. And it is true that some doors, even if they're not designed specifically to be bulletproof, they may end up stopping a projectile. It's really not the most common thing. The most common outcome for example, a 9mm or even a 22 fired through a door, that's going to be going through that door, wood or metal, with enough force to kill the person on the other side. That is by far the most common case. So he's correctly standing, and you see this sometimes on TV shows where the cop knocks and he's standing on the side of the door, in case he gets shot through. So just the hand knocks on the door, and here you see why that is. Right? So he goes again at it. Yeah, that's me. I'm banging on the door. He says he's communicating, which is good. Police! Police! He says again.
Police! Police department!
Now, that's where you see the round being fired. I cannot tell for sure if it went through. I would assume it went through, but there's a shiny spot, which if that had been a black spot, I would have said 100% it went through. Here it may have been that it hit a beam, or depending on the kind of construction that you have in this specific door, maybe it just didn't go through. Maybe there's a beam on the inside. Maybe it's one of these fire doors that are intended to stop, the spread of fire, and they have more stuff going on the inside. Maybe it's just a structural beam of the door itself, and it hit right in that spot. I'm just not sure. Now, the 90% case, it goes through with enough force to kill the person on the other side. You definitely see the paint chipping, and you see the deformation. It may have gone through or not. Now on the other side, in that other door, I don't see an impact. So there's a possibility that it simply did not go through. All right, that may be the case. Anyway, doesn't matter. Assume that doors will not stop bullets. That is by far the most common thing. Shots fired, he communicates, he keeps his gun pointed in the direction, he has a flashlight.
Shots fired inside the door stairwell.
I'm not hit.
Shooting through the door.
But he's shooting through a door, right? So he's covering the door with his gun. Now there's people in there, and notice the cat running up. Why is that? Well, the cat is nervous. Now, be careful. If you're in a stairway like this, you may trip with a cat, dog, neighbors, kids, whatever it is that's running around here. You just don't know if that's the case or not. Backup comes. They work together correctly. They try not to cross one another. He touches the head. You notice that? These guys are I would assume they're well trained. Well, you see what I mean? You don't know. You have to be one of the things, and in the different classes and different courses I've taken over the years, I haven't seen nearly as much dedication to identify before you shoot, especially when you start mixing stuff with sport shooting, where it's all about speed and accuracy. And yes, you have the no-shoot targets, but it's different. It was really on some of the, it was actually on the first dedicated defensive shooting course that I took when I was a freaking child, 15 years old. In that class, in that course that I took, fortunately, I had instructors that insisted a lot on identify before you pull the trigger. This is so important, and I haven't seen it enforced as much since then. I don't know if it was just the ones that I've been involved in, but I would say that these days, I don't think there's enough dedication put in. Identify before you shoot. Man, be absolutely certain that you have to put a round in that person, because if not, this guy may end up getting shot. You see this all the damn time, and it happens even in home invasions where you end up shooting a neighbor, a friend of your kid that stayed over and you didn't even know about it. There's people that shoot their own kids because they woke up in the middle of the night and you didn't identify before shooting something that just surprised you. Okay, so that guy, he could have caught a bullet if these two haven't been well trained. Fortunately, I would say they were. I mean, they're already getting shot at, so you could assume that they're very, itchy and ready to shoot. Another one. Hey. Show me your F hands. People kill with their hands, either with a knife, with a gun, with some kind of weapons, but they want to see those hands. Keep this in mind in both cases, in both sides of the coin. If cops are involved and you're there, show your hands. Now, if you are the one that is looking for a threat, make sure you see those hands yourself, because the moment you don't see that hand, typical, they just do this. They hide it behind their back, and psychologically, you haven't seen a weapon already, but you have to assume that if you don't see the hands, you may be involved with someone that has something that could potentially kill you. We saw in a previous video a little freaking girl that was doing this and stabbed a cop right in the damn neck with a knife that she had behind her back. Hands kill. Be careful with that. The guy is still shooting. Little kids right in the path of where bullets are being fired. They get those two kids out. You see what he's doing? You see the hand? Now, this is a little bit more advanced, but if you ever took some of these more advanced training classes where you work with someone else at very close combat quarter kind of deal things, this is a legit tactic, which is you're on top, the other guy is underneath you, right? And this is an effective way of having two guns pointing in the right direction, but it can be very dangerous as well. That's why you touch the head of the other guy. The way I was trained was you hold the guy literally holding his vest so as to keep him down, and he by accident, he tries to get up, you make him stay down because you have your gun on top. So you're the one that decides when he goes up. If he has a vest, you hold the vest. If he has nothing, you hold the freaking shirt tight with your hand, and you keep the guy down, and he only responds to your movement. You bring him up and you move him around, right? At least that's how I was taught. Now, I see some of that going on here because the tapping of the head, I would assume these two train together at some point. So they are doing the right thing of one on top of the other so as to have. Now, the thing that I don't see maybe all that cool here is they're very exposed here. I mean, this is something that I'd rather have. And yes, of course, as always, recommending my book, Street Survival Skills, where I explain lots of these things that I have learned myself. And it has worked very well for me over the years. And besides that, it's the same thing that whenever I go to some other class in some other part of the world, usually the basics are still the same. Now, this is not so basic. This is more advanced. What is something that I see not so great here is that they're not covering themselves correctly, and they're very exposed in this, the death funnel or whatever as you want to call it, which is the doorway. It is super easy to have someone, let me show you, because I wrote specifically about these kind of scenarios where you're freaking exposed there, and you just don't want to have that kind of exposure. Like, for example, ideally, this is what you should be doing. I don't know if I get the camera angle there right, but you see that? That's exactly what you want. You want to have minimal exposure. The eye and the gun, right? Doing this. You're covering yourself as much as you can. Not even your foot. Nothing. You don't give them anything. Only your eye and your gun. This is a minimal amount of exposure, and you're still pointing a gun in the right direction. In this case, with these two guys, there would be a head here and another guy doing the exact same here. It is, a little bit more advanced training, but these guys, it probably, well, that's the way it was explained to me, that's how it works. And you would be seeing these two, one on top of the other. That's how you have those two guns pointing in the right direction. And if shooting starts, you're in a pretty good spot so as to shoot back. Now, that part where they're exposed so much, man, I don't think that's all that great. Now, in terms of the rest of this stuff, I think it's pretty solid. It's pretty solid in terms of how they're keeping their fingers off their trigger guard. Yeah, you have your red dot. That's a perfectly viable option, especially as your eyes go, as years go by. Tactical light, yeah, absolutely. The shooter is somewhere there, right?
Shots are coming from apartment 318 on the northeast corner. Police!
Shots from 318 northeast corner.
They're just too exposed in that case, right? Now he gets up without having the other guy pick him up, maybe because he's already going to the side, which should be a lot more there covering himself. Anyway, maybe not everything perfect. Things are rarely so. Now he's a little bit better covered, and he's realizing, man, I should use cover a little bit better. They call for a rifle. Someone shows up with what seems to be a carbine with a suppressor there. So these guys have good equipment, and they seem to be relatively okay, well trained. Now, keep in mind, if this was a situation in which you have an active shooter, if you have kids bleeding to death on those floors in there, you have to move forward. You cannot stay like this, just waiting, because every second counts, and your inaction means the life of someone else. You really should move forward. Now, that's not the case here. They're already clear. The person that called them, the woman on the phone, they got the kids out, and for all they know, there's only the aggressor, only the suspect is in there that shot at them. So now you have all the time in the world. You don't hurry things if you don't have to. So you play cool. They're covering that. Again, I think, it's a very narrow hallway. But, you see the rounds there. You see the rounds. I don't think those went through, man. That's kind of unusual. But I don't think those went through the door completely. So they show that. They show there's a, and then we have this from the exterior where you have the shooter. This is the shooter who's high on drugs, mentally unstable, crazy, whatever thing he has going on. He's talking on the phone, hanging on the window, and in this ridiculous display.
About the apartment with your hands up. We're not going anywhere.
Come out with your hands up. He doesn't give a damn, and he messes around with them. He does not surrender, and eventually the choice is made that they're going to be stopping this. So this goes on for a while until they get the...
Come out your apartment door with your hands up.
He refuses. He was just shooting randomly at cops like a complete lunatic, a threat to everyone around him. A shooter that will not surrender to police, and eventually the order is given, and he's taken down by a sniper. There's a guy with a rifle that takes a shot.
Just went ducked in.
So you see the rifle there, the scope. So he takes a shot and ends the situation that they had there. A lot of little things to keep in mind in terms of how you train, how you move around, how people that they were not supposed to get shot that were just crossing all over you. And if you are nervous, if you don't play it cool, if you don't have especially if you don't have your finger off your trigger guard until you're ready to shoot, you could easily shoot someone. You have to identify before you pull the trigger. This is key. And, based on my experience, I honestly can say that I don't see it insisted as much as it should be. I think that these days, especially, maybe it's because of the sport aspect of practical shooting. There's a lot of training in terms of being fast and accurate. All of that is important. It is nowhere near as important of being sure of what you're shooting at who you're shooting, if this is a threat that deserves to get shot at. This is how you avoid by far the most common accidents in terms of self-defense shooting gone wrong because someone got shot that wasn't supposed to. Anyway, folks, that's what I have for you in this video. I'll follow up with something that is, unbelievable, but related to this one. Remember, the tactical aspect, I think the best thing is get training from a qualified instructor. If not, you have my books, especially this one where I cover quite a bit of this stuff, and I assure you, you'll be in a much better position than if you haven't read, especially in cases like these. For the economic aspect of survival and preparedness, surviving the economic collapse, 1,000 reviews in Amazon. Thank you guys for your support over the years. Links for all of that there below. Take care and see you in the next video. Bye bye.